Thank you for joining me. I thought I'd have a nice chat with you today about the gift of perspective. I am sitting outside at home in this absolutely gorgeous evening of autumn, and I've just returned from putting together and running a retreat for 10 wonderful souls who've joined me on one of these adventures of a lifetime. We basically have been away for 2 weeks, traveling all around Arizona. And perspective is something that's given often by changing your environment and changing your view. And I think it's an absolutely amazing gift to humanity, the fact that at any stage we can just click our fingers and change our perspective on a situation that's arisen in our lives. And I wanted to talk to you about that because I really believe the gift of perspective can give you freedom. I think it's like a card to get out of jail. I think it's one of those ultimate truths that can free you up from any limitation your own belief system has put you in, encased you in a straitjacket of our own making. Quite often it's our own making. And I'm witnessing all over the world these limiting beliefs that are coming from our education and depending on what country we're in, and our reaction to how other people live. And it's coming from these self-limitation beliefs that we have on control, on fear, and various other things. And as you know, if anybody's watched any of my other videos, I am delighted to share with you anything that I possibly can from my own learnings to help with freedom, to help with a bigger expansion of views of humanity, towards unity, towards the one world, the one voice. And this started a very long time ago for me. I can remember reading a Stephen Covey book. It might have been 7 Habits for Highly Successful People or something along those lines, and I am happy to own up to the fact that I might have that wrong. But anyway, check out his books because they're phenomenally good. And anyway, I remember reading a story about a man being on a platform of a railway station, and he's had a tough day and he's looking forward to getting home. We all know what that feels like, perhaps. And bursting into his private scene on the railway station are these young children yelling and screaming and fighting and pushing and shoving. And what appears to be their father comes and sits next to this guy. And after a while, as the noise escalates and the man just sits there doing nothing and people are getting irritated, annoyed, and this gentleman says, "Don't you think you should control your children more? Help them behave better?" And then the man turns round and says, "I don't know how. We've just come from the hospital and their mother has just died." So I think hopefully you can feel that with that extra piece of knowledge, our perspective has just instantly changed. So the man then says, "I'm awfully sorry. How may I help?" So in an instant, that tale tells us that with enough education about what's happening inside somebody else's skin, in somebody else's mind, in somebody else's heart, we can gain more compassion very easily. In a microsecond, we can be altered in our time and space because all of a sudden our environment looks different. It's still the same. The children are still making the same sounds. the same people are all around, the same sky, the same seat. But our internal composition of that story has suddenly altered. Our perspective has been given the gift of freedom for us to react to the situation in a completely different way, because we've been educated on someone else's story to a deeper degree. And it's that sort of thing, really. Even if you take nothing else from this little chat that we're having now, and join me in a cup of tea if that's what you'd like to do, that's what I'm enjoying now. It's sort of like, you know, there's loads of times in our lives. Why do I want to even bother talking to you about this? It's because the benefits of actually having a greater perspective, as we've said, is freedom. How were you feeling when we began that story and you were starting to really understand what it was like for that gentleman just after a long, hard day wanting to go home? How did you feel when the story expanded into the truth of that other family? How did you feel then? What change occurred within you? And these changes are happening all of the time within you. And I suppose I just wanted to say, you know, raise a glass, raise a cup of tea, to the fact that we can change our perspective at any time, with anybody, in any land. And if you choose to alter your mind space and your heart space to open up more compassion for yourself in that moment, then life will be a very, very different experience. And we can all do it. It reminds me of, again, that story about the goldfish in the goldfish bowl. Have you heard that one? So people keep telling me that if you take a goldfish in a goldfish bowl, and some friends have done this actually as a test, and you pop the goldfish in the bath full of water, obviously same temperature so you don't hurt the fish, it will still swim, even though it's got the whole area that a bath would take. It will still swim into the full measurement of the goldfish bowl from which it came from. It hasn't yet learnt how to alter that barrier that it's been contained within all of its life so far. And I feel the gift of perspective is for you to find out where those barriers are of our own goldfish bowls that we have been educated into, that we have been brought up in, or whatever it is that you want to say, and swim beyond that and see what that greater perspective of the other side of the bath is like compared to what we thought the goldfish bowl was. So the goldfish bowl is the world that we're in at the moment, and experiences, travel, new friendship, different types of music, food, whatever it happens to be, just differences enable us to live in a much bigger world. And with the bigger world comes more learning, more opportunities of freedom. We have been fortunate enough to travel 1,500 miles to some of the most iconic views across Arizona of Monument Valley, the Cathedral of Antelope Canyon, which is astonishing, Horseshoe Bend in the Colorado River, Gooseneck Bend, which was eerily atmospheric and took me to a different world. Traveling the many and the wonderful lands, we've traveled with the Navajo, with the Hopi, met people from all sorts of tribes, been welcomed into their lives and their belief structures, and they've been happy to teach us their way. And what I thought was absolutely amazing about that was it's just a learning about how other cultures are viewing currently their history, and how they're learning from that and what they're deciding to do with that. And are we not all in the same position as a worldwide event of changes that are happening now? Have we not all got choices about how we move forward? keep a wider perspective so that you can stay in that loving and that light and that compassionate and that wisdom, that openness and willing to learn how others live, how others think. One of the places we stayed in at the conclusion of our retreat for the last week was Sedona, which is known basically for being an oasis, really, of cleansing and replenishment, and for what they call vortexes. Vortexes are energetic sites all over the world. In Sedona, you've got quite a lot of them all together, where they provide a higher consciousness, or they bring out of you, it's power points on the earth grid, really, and it pulls out of you what's already in there, and it makes it strong enough for you to take a really good look. And we met a wide variety of people. Some people say it's all the new age stuff. I actually think it's a freedom place, and it's very comfortable and very easy to be in. But we were staying at this fantastic place, and we kept getting sort of different neighbours in the next door apartment, and we were having some really good chats with this couple from America, and they were really, really nice, and they'd tell us each evening where they'd been and what their experiences were. And then one day over breakfast, the gentleman out of the couple said, oh, well, the lady actually said, oh, we found out the history about Sedona. Did you know in the beginning it all started with apple orchards, and the whole place was full of apple orchards? And we were listening to this, and I just mentioned, I said, oh, well, actually, we've just heard, because we'd been with the Hopi tribe a few days before, and they had educated us on the fact that there were special spiritual springs of water, deeply, deeply rooted into the earth, and that the shamans of all of the tribes were the only ones who were allowed to go to what is now known as Sedona. And it has a different name in their history and language. And Sedona's a recent name that's been given, actually, of a lady, of a gentleman that found it a few hundred years ago. So previous to that, it was an oasis in the desert, and the shamans were the only people in the tribes that were allowed to go there to cleanse, to replenish. The shamans medicine people would have been giving and giving and giving to the tribe all of the time, and they needed somewhere to go to actually take some energy back, to really build themselves up again on every level, to be able to go back to their tribe and do what was necessary. So it's been held by the natives around that area as a very sacred ground, and they've known forever that it has magical qualities. And so now anyone can go, but in those days, in the real history, it was just the shamans. So I was passing this information on to these new people that we'd met. And this chap, I thought, oh, what have I done? Because he went very pale, and he stood stock still. And he said, oh, gosh, typical American, he said, as an American, that I should forget prehistory. And it took me a minute to get my head around this, because being an English person from the UK, we're drenched in thousands of years of history here on a regular basis. And naturally, our education system has different views of history, and therefore we're all brought up differently, have different environments provided for us, different goldfish bowls provided for us to swim in. And yeah, we had a bit of a chat about it, and then he went off. I don't know what perspective us having that little conversation gave him, but the perspective I came away with was, wow, aren't we lucky to be able to have different ideas of history? And, you know, he was basically saying, you know, his history started like 400 years ago. But our conversation was leading him to understand and to remember and to reclaim the history of the peoples that were originally there, their belief structures and what happened for them. So I just think all of this education through travel, through meeting new people, through finding out all sorts of different information that creates our own goldfish bowls are to be honoured and to be held reverently and beautifully in our hearts and minds. But to also have a little think about if we have the courage to step out of our own goldfish bowl that's been provided for us and to go see what's at the other end of that bath or ocean or world or universe that we are now living in, and to find out the magic that's there by altering our perspective of every person we meet, of every conversation we have, and, you know, many opportunities. This all started off, by the way, with a conversation I was having with my daughter Natalie this morning, and I've written it down because it touched me and altered my perspective. We were chatting about different opportunities that a friend of ours is now looking at, which is a big change for her. And Natalie said, there is only so much growing you can do in one spot before you need different soil. Don't you just love that? Nat said, there is only so much growing you can do in one spot before you need different soil. And I thought about that, and I thought, well, we love gardening, and you know, whenever you plant anything, it stays in the same place till you split it up or it grows off differently. But actually we feed the soil all of the time, so it enables the healthy growth. And seeds fly off, do they not? Or are taken by birds and they're replanted into that different soil. So Mother Nature is showing us what Natalie talked about. So my question to you is, on perspective, what soil are you going to choose to grow stronger and healthier? Our next adventure is coming up. We're off to Cambodia and Vietnam in February for another amazing adventure. For anybody that's interested, you can follow my website and all the details will be on there. And I don't know if you're interested or not. You might want to message me or leave some comments below if you are interested. But a while back we went to Maui to hear the sound of the humpback whales. And I put up a YouTube video about our experience of photographs and things there. And I'm thinking of doing the same thing on a YouTube video for our adventure that we've just had, which is mystical redlands in Sedona. So if you're interested in that, let me know and we'll pop one together over the next few weeks. Because I'd love to share these journeys with you. And if your perspective is that you can't come along or don't want to come along, but are interested in receiving the love in that way, then do let me know. And if your perspective alters to open life's opportunities up enough to come journeying with us, then let me know and we can go from there. Lots of love, everybody. Soul to soul. Bye for now.